In today's show, we go back to 1960 for one of the biggest horror films ever made as we look at Psycho. Just remember, everybody, a boy's best friend is his mother. Welcome to The Problematic Gaze with me, Dr. Lee Arnott.
And me, Dave Moore.
Each episode we take a piece of pop culture from yesteryear, asking ourselves the question, could you get away with it today? And if not, why not? And what does that say about society and culture then and now?
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll take a delve, dip our toe, into Culture Corner, just to see what was going on in the social and cultural landscape of the year in question.
Indeed, and it's a big one today, everybody. Yeah, buckle up. It's a classic. It's one that you'll know even if you've never seen it. And we can go... and you'll immediately know what we're talking about because we are, of course, looking at Psycho.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the shower.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. Cheers, darling.
Cheers, darling. Now, it is Friday night.
Yeah.
By the magic of podcasting. This will be going out into your airwaves on Tuesday. So we thought we'd have a little cheeky glass of vino. We thought we're not going to pop a cork today.
Won't pop a cork.
We'll just be quite parsimonious and have quite a large glass of wine instead.
Sip it very slowly.
Because you might need to have a little drinky on hand.
Yes.
Because of the subject matter we're going to be talking about.
Indeed. Now, what's your relationship with Psycho? I mean, the film, not just generally.
I thought you was going to ask me what my relationship with my mother was like. That's a whole podcast in itself.
I think we all know that one, darling.
Love you, Mum. Love you, Mum. She might be listening, so I was just going to say that. Love you, Mum.
Love you, Mum.
Yes, it has just been Mother's Day, hasn't it?
It has.
Passed.
And this is the mother of all mothers' films.
This is the mother of all mothers' films. Yeah, my relationship with Psycho, I mean, I've watched it a couple of times, but obviously it's Hitchcock, isn't it? I mean, it's famous. It was groundbreaking, genre-busting, and narratively complex. And who cannot forget Janet Leigh in the shower, Norman Bates, etc. So, yes, I mean, it's absolutely famous.
Infamous.
Infamous, yes. What about you?
Well, yes. I mean, I think I first saw it when I was 13 or 14. And again, because I was 13 or 14 in the mid-80s, it was like, oh, not enough killing, not enough blood. And obviously over the years, I've come to appreciate it for the absolute classic and horror genre making film that it is. And the more I've watched it, I don't know how many times I've seen it now, but every time I see it, there's something new element that just reveals itself to me. And I just love it. And especially talking about our episode on Pillow Talk a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Rock Hudson being in the closet. So was Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the scenes he was made to do, and Hitchcock knew he was gay, and seeing some of the scenes that he gets and some of the things he says, it really struck me as kind of even more kind of resonant. But yeah, it's just the granddaddy of the slasher movie, you could argue. It's just a great movie.
Yeah.
With a big rug pull halfway through. You just think, oh, we're doing this instead.
Yeah. And also, I have to say, watching it again for this podcast, there was a lot about it that I'd forgotten about. Because obviously we remember the famous stuff, don't we? The shower scene, the mother, Norman, etc. But there's a lot more to it than that. A lot of characters that I'd forgotten actually were in it.
Right.
In particular, one rather handsome young man.
I know who you mean.
But anyway, let's move on.
Would you like to tell us a bit about Psycho?
I will. So I'll tell you a bit about the background of Psycho. So it's a 1960 American horror film produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The screenplay was written by Joseph Stefano and was based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Robert Bloch. The film stars Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vera Miles, John Gavin, and Martin Balsam. So Psycho was seen as a bit of a departure from Hitchcock's previous film, North by Northwest, as it was filmed on a small budget in black and white by the crew of his television series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Initially, the film divided critics due to its controversial subject matter, but audience interest and outstanding box office returns prompted a major critical reevaluation. Psycho was a massive commercial success. From a budget of 806,000, the film grossed 50 million at the box office worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Director for Hitchcock and Best Supporting Actress for Lee. And Psycho set a new level of acceptability for violence, deviant behaviour, and sexuality in American films, and has been considered to be one of the earliest examples of the slasher film genre.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So, lots to explore there,
Indeed.
isn't there? But why don't you tell us what happens in Psycho?
Sure. That's all you need to know. No. Okay. Marion Crane's bad decision road trip screeches to a halt at the Bates Motel, where she meets Norman Bates, a shy, twitchy mummy's boy who runs the place while living in the shadow of the loudest off-screen parent in cinema history. Norman insists his mother is perfectly normal, which is impressive given she spends her time yelling insults from a creepy house on a hill and emotionally dismantling her son from another building. Their relationship is warm, loving, and by warm and loving I mean deeply unhealthy, codependent and soaked in psychological dread. From there, Psycho becomes less about stolen money and more about what happens when the mother simply refuses to let her son have hobbies, friends, or a separate personality. Norman tries, he really does, but mother always has opinions, especially about women, morality, and murder. By the end, the film reveals that when people say no one will ever love you like your mother, they probably did not mean this, and were left with a timeless message. Some family bonds should really come with professional supervision and several locked doors. Indeed.
Indeed.
So let's think about how Psycho is remembered today. As you said, one of the most influential films ever made, not just horror cinema, in general. And this whole thing about killing off the main character halfway through. Do you remember the first time you watched it and you suddenly realised what was... It just blew my mind, I remember.
It's crazy because, I mean, we talk a lot on this podcast about how almost every film you watch follows a similar narrative, which is the hero's journey. You see the hero embarking out on a quest, as we do here with Marion Crane. She steals money, she goes out into the world, literally drives out on an adventure. And then we see the hero confronted by various obstacles, and then we see them arrive at a crossroads where they have to make a decision about what line they're going to go, they're going to follow the path of virtue, or they're going to descend into darkness. And then we get a nice resolution at the end, wrapped up in a bow, and in a normal film, as you would say, Marion would go on her merry way. But that doesn't happen here. So for cinema audiences to have the main protagonist that the director and the story has made you fall in love with, even though she's committed a crime, you're rooting for her, and then all of a sudden she gets cut off, deaded, halfway through the movie, like you say, must have blown people's minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And what also was really, I don't want to say amazing, but groundbreaking was the fact that suddenly an everyday space can become terrifying. And if you think about American horror films to that point, especially in the late 50s, early 60s, they're all a nuclear threat. So we get these huge, giant radiation monster movies, but here we have the horror is in a space that everybody uses, a shower, unless you live from Britain, it's a tin bath. Not quite the same. Yeah. And the monster within the film is a very human, very ordinary looking person. So again, must have just blown people's minds that the horror comes from something so ordinary as opposed to a radiation infused giant spider.
Yeah.
And Norman is terrifying because he's so normal.
Also, I think what's really important to remember is that in America, especially in the 1960s, from the Second World War, and they've got the Soviet threat and the Red Scare and, the Cold War starting up, America was kind of, if you saw a film about America, it was about how good America was. Or, as you say, you get the alien invasion, or there's an exterior threat. So you get a very safe American town in Phoenix. You know, what's more classic than an American motel? Millions of people use them a year to go about their way, etc. So for the threat to come from within must have also unnerved
Yeah.
cinema goers quite a lot as well.
Yes, absolutely. And today, there's discussion about Psycho, which is psychological, through a psychological lens, through a social lens. The films often used to talk about repression, identity, voyeurism, and control, and obviously the mother-son dynamic, you know, which it's had such a long life of discussion and analysis since it was released that, you know, it's seminal, isn't it? It's one of those, we use the word iconic quite a lot, but it genuinely is an iconic. If something can sear itself onto the world's consciousness so that people know it without having seen it, then, you know, it's a bit like our podcast, darling.
Yeah. But I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that if people today, especially, you know, younger generations, they're used to the slasher film, the screams, I Know What You Did Last Summer's, Nightmare on Elm Street, even from the 80s, Jason and Freddy and all that kind of thing. But in 1960, to see this, people were expecting it, you know? But we expect it these days.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, a younger person going back and watching this film might think, well, it might be a bit boring. You know, there's only one killing in it. Well, there's a couple, but we have to look at it through 1960s eyes, don't we?
And of course, famously, Hitchcock wouldn't allow any latecomers into the cinema where it was shown. So there'd be queues around the block, and he said, promise that you won't reveal what happens in the ending. So it gets a buzz about it. So before we take a deep dive into it, should we have a look at what life was like in the UK in 1960? Because it's very different from what America was like in 1960. And you can get some sense from Psycho why American culture seemed so appealing to people in the UK, because it's a little bit grim. But shall we cross over to Culture Corner?
Shall we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Culture Corner. Culture Corner. Culture.
Corner.
Culture.
Corner.
Corner.
It's a corner.
It's culture.
That was a good one, I
That was
think.
good fun, yeah. We were riffing off each other then, weren't we?
Riffing off each other, darling.
It's like the Beatles when they're, you know, working out the lyrics to Hey Jude.
Yes,
or
that's probably
something.
exactly what John and Paul sitting in the corner going, hey,
Jude.
hey, Jude. Hey, Jude.
Jude, make me a cup of tea.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey Jude. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
So in Britain, the war is still very much everywhere. Rationing's only ended 6 years earlier. There's still this idea of make, do and mend. There's still not a lot of money around. Food is very plain. The father is still the head of the family. He's the breadwinner. Social class is really important. So it's where you live, how you spoke. Our accents wouldn't get us anywhere in 1960, Dave. And what job you have are pretty much how your life will be lived for the rest of your life. Homes are often cold, smoky, small, coal fires, outside toilets. There's only 2 channels on television, and on Sunday, it's dead. There's absolutely nothing apart from church and maybe the odd football match, but it is a dead zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a kid then when there's just nothing to do?
But then you
nowhere
had to
go?
entertain yourself.
Yes.
You know,
Well-
and you often did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it's important to kind of emphasize that, you know, teenagers were becoming a bit of a force majeure, you know, from the late 50s to the early 60s, because they had kind of more disposable income. So rock and roll was taking off. Elvis and his pelvis.
Still my beating heart. Cliff and his quiver.
Cliff and his whatever. Yeah, and coffee bars were becoming really popular, and as were jukeboxes. So, you know, music was becoming more immediate.
Yeah.
So you could go to your favourite coffee bar and put on the jukebox, and the latest hits of the day would emanate from them. And American movies were popular in the UK because it offered an escapism, and there was often a certain air of rebellion. There was a certain air of rebelliousness about them. Yeah. That wine's kicking in.
Yeah.
So by 1960, young people were kind of buying records, wearing sharper clothes, and quietly alarming their parents, I would imagine.
Yeah, and this is a big thing because until this point, you are expected to watch and listen to the same music as your parents and wear the same clothes as your parents. If you see pictures of kids and parents, they're dressed like their
Yeah.
parents. And this is the rise of the little mini record player. So for the first time, teenagers are able to go to their bedroom and listen to their own music as opposed to what mum and dad are listening to
Yeah.
downstairs. So yeah, it must have felt really, if
Yeah.
you're a parent, it's like, what are those drain pipe jeans you've got? Or what are jeans?
I remember my mother, as it's Mother's Day, saying that she had her first record player in her bedroom and she would go out and buy these records, etc. So, I mean, in 1960, she would be about 12.
Right.
And she also talked about going to clubs, and live music in clubs was growing in, popularity and everything. Most famously, the Beatles and the Cavern Club.
They won't last.
They won't last. But in 1960, they were gigging around Hamburg and kind of honing their sound, which would become synonymous with the 60s. And so it wasn't the start of the 60s yet, but the early signs of the swinging system. I can't say it. That wine's kicking in. The early signs of the swinging 60s were there.
Very different to the swinging sissies,
Yeah.
which is us two later on once
yeah,
the wine's kicked
Well,
in.
it's me now.
Socially, the country is much more conservative, deferential, and much more closed off than it is today, obviously. Homosexuality is illegal. We'd have been clapped in irons and sent to prison. It's 1960, late 50s and early 60s when you get the highest number of prosecutions of gay men in the country. There's a real witch hunt against gay men. Divorce is very stigmatic. If you get divorced, it's terrible for the woman, obviously, not for the bloke. Racism is widespread. There's been a steady influx of immigration from the Caribbean and South Asia. Nobody talks about mental health. At this point, you're either mental, you get straight into an asylum, and that's it. We clearly, famously don't talk about emotions in the UK. And it's interesting because authority, whatever form it's in, teachers, the police, doctors, the BBC, authority is often accepted without any question at all. But it is becoming more open to questioning class, authority, and emotional repression. And so satire shows like Beyond the Fringe in 1960 to 1961, That Was the Week That Was, I think it's 1962, are an open expression of mocking politicians and the upper classes, which would have been unthinkable 10 years earlier. So there is starting again, it will explode in the swinging 60s. Swinging sissies. But at the moment, we just got the fledgling of it. So we're really on the cusp here, aren't we?
Yeah, but it's really important, I think, when you talk to a person who grew up in the 60s, kind of my mum and dad's age, etc., they would say to you that life was better back then because it was simpler. And, kids could roam the street, go out and play 9 a.m. and come back, get back before it gets dark kind of vibe, So there was a bigger sense of community then than I suppose there is now. I mean, there are pockets of community, especially like where I live in my village, there is a community there. But if you live in, a big city like London or, other cities, it's that sense of community is probably not there as much as it was back in the 60s. Neighbours knew each other. Like I say, kids were on the streets and, the local pubs and churches especially, and the corner shops were kind of social anchors, and that was reflected in shows like Coronation Street, which started this year. That one row of houses in Salford, everyone knew each other, everyone helped each other out.
Leave your back door open.
Leave your back door open, go down to the corner shop, you'll get all your gossip about everybody from the street, etc. There was a local Christian mission across the road. So yeah, that's essentially what it was. It feels warm, but at the same time, I could imagine that it's quite repressive as well. And you can imagine why kids that were getting more disposable income and they were exposed to more outside influences of rock and roll, the Beatles, etc. You can tell why they probably wanted to rebel and make better lives for themselves and not carry on the traditions so much of their parents and their grandparents who gone through the war.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing about, being kids going out for whatever God time, you kind of argue, because we used to do that in the 80s when we were kids. And it's really the murder of James Bulger in this country, which suddenly parents get very paranoid, but also technology changes. So before home computers, before, I remember when I was a kid, Mum, if you said, Mum, summer holidays, like, oh, I'm bored. Well, I was like, you can't be bored. There's always something to do. Read a book, or you'd have to entertain yourself, because there's not the technology in order to do that. So I think we've all got a kind of, until 1990, 91, everybody kind of has a similar experience of growing up pre-technology, when suddenly your
Sega Mega Drives, Nintendos,
exactly
all
Commodore
that.
64s, Ataris,
Sinclair Spectrum,
all of it. Yeah,
Amstrad.
yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the tennis?
Yes, of course. I had one of those.
Yeah.
So youth culture's louder, class deference is wobbling, television's reshaping daily life, art's getting sharper and angrier. By the time people start calling it the swinging 60s, which is about 64, 65, all the groundwork's been laid in years like 1960. So rather than look at the top 10 films of the year, I thought I found from the here's the one. Kinematograph Weekly, which was the trade paper for UK cinemas. I've got their December 15th, 1960 issue, and they have a review of the year, and it's got some quite interesting little insights. So do you want to see what the top 3 films of the year were, first of all?
Let's do it. Okay, so number 3 is Carry On Constable.
Wow, yes, I think that's the second Carry On film at this
Right.
point. Yeah, so again, hasn't quite become the Carry On films yet, we know, but obviously they're hugely popular,
Yeah,
aren't
cozy, homespun, irreverent.
Yeah,
Kind of old humour, I would say. Older humour.
Yes, and interestingly, Carry On Constable has 4 naked male bottoms in it.
Oh,
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, no naked female flesh, so it's kind of weird reverse of what we usually expect from a Carry On
you
film.
know, you're doing a rerun of all the Carry On films.
Yes.
Is this essentially so you can see how many bums were in each film?
This is the only film with naked male bottoms in it. It's boobs and women's bottoms from 1968-69, basically. Number 2 is Sink the Bismarck, which I presume is a war film. Bismarck, was that a...
Yeah, that was a film. That was a ship.
Fine.
Yes.
I guess it was a ship. The Sink was a...
So number 1, kind of similar to Carry On Constable in a way, wasn't it? Doctor in Love.
Yeah, those doctor films. There was a series of those as well. And later on, one of the Carry On Hospital films was actually a script that I believe was supposed to have been a doctor film, but the Carry On series was obviously much more popular.
Was that Dirk Bogarde?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Random, isn't it? Yeah. The review of the year also gives us what were the best-selling films by genre. So the best blockbusting exploitation offering. Now, this isn't an exploitation movie. And again, blockbusting is interesting because we've got the term blockbusting already in 1960. So it's exploiting in terms of what was exploiting the market. So the biggest film of the year was Hercules Unchained, which I guess is like a sword and sandal epic, isn't it?
I've seen something very similar to that, but
I'm not looking at your internet browser history to find out what it was.
on a niche
darling.
website. It's interesting, isn't it, that we've got blockbusting, the words blockbusting, because everyone kind of thinks about Jaws being the first blockbuster.
Or then E.T. was the first kind of Spielbergian blockbuster. I mean, Jaws is the thing, but E.T. cements that whole blockbuster thing. Yeah, but here it is, 1960.
Okay, so we've got the most successful American film here, which we won't delve too much into because it's Psycho.
The best straight, in inverted commas, X certificate. So this is an X certificate movie for adults only, which is not a horror film, but adult themed, and it's Suddenly Last Summer, which is Montgomery Clift and Elizabeth Taylor. I think it's the one where he can't work out if he's gay or not, but a bit racy.
A bit racy.
For
What's it?
1960.
So the best horrific.
Yes, another interesting thing, they're not horror films, they're horrific films in 1960.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yes, the best horrific was Circus of Horrors, Anglo amalgamated films. So that was obviously an English film.
Yes, yeah, it was. Anglo Amalgamated were also the distributors of Carry On.
Ah,
Yeah. The most popular female stars of the year were Sophia Loren, Audrey Hepburn, and Elizabeth Taylor.
The most popular male were Kenneth Moore, Peter Sellers, and Steve Reeves.
Who's Steve Reeves?
Whatever happened to Steve Reeves, I wonder.
And the most promising newcomers were Shirley Ann Field and Albert Finney, who are two who are going to have huge careers, obviously.
Yeah.
Should we have a look at the top 10 singles of the year? What were the biggest selling singles in the UK in 1960?
Confidence.
I think there might be one or two classics, but probably I don't think we'll know many of these.
Well, let's see then. At number 10, we've got Good Timing by Jimmy Jones.
Good timing. Don't know it at all. Elvis has got a double A side, A Mess of Blues, or The Girl of My Best Friend.
Oh, I wonder how old that girl was.
Speaking of mothers, that's a weird relationship, isn't it?
Number 8 is Handyman, Jimmy Jones. Well, Jimmy Jones again.
Yeah.
A big R&B influenced hit.
Number 7, Anthony Newley with Why. That's the top-selling record by a British pop star of the time. Anthony Newley was big, wasn't he?
I didn't know he was a pop star either.
Oh, yeah, he was a big singer, yeah. Before an actor, I think. Yeah, he's one of those kind of triple threat, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then marries Joan Collins.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the only way I know of him, really, his association with Joan. Number 6, Only the Lonely. Roy Orbison, emotional ballad. Emotional ballad with lasting appeal.
Number 5 is Shirley Bassey, Burley Chassis. As Long as He Needs Me. Dramatic vocal performance that sold strong. It must be from Oliver, I guess.
Must be.
Yeah, obviously it is, yeah.
Shirley Bassey would make a good Nancy, wouldn't she?
She would. Yeah, she would.
It's Now or Never. That's what I say to you before we record each podcast.
True.
Elvis Presley, one of Elvis's enduring classics.
To which I always reply, please don't tease. Which is number 3, and that's Cliff and the Shadows.
Well, number 2, Apache / Quartermaster Stores, The Shadows, a major instrumental hit.
That's Apache.
Is it?
Yeah. Down, no, no. Down, no, 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 no.
Copyright department.
Number 1, Kathy's Clown, the Everly Brothers, widely regarded as the biggest single of 1960 in the UK.
Wow.
There we go. I know that one.
How does that go? Oh, yeah, I got it right at the end there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Kathy's Clown.
What does that mean, Kathy's Clown?
I don't know. Who's Kathy?
I mean, is it a toy?
Is it?
Is it a man who's acting the clown?
I'm sure if we actually looked at the lyrics, it might become apparent to us. But since we're two lazy bastards, we'll not bother.
Yeah, research department.
Research department on the phone, please.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we should delve headfirst into Psycho.